Welcome to the Coach Barnabas podcast. It's time to take a few minutes and leave behind the stuff that drains us and recharge our batteries with some encouragement and insight. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Hi, welcome back to Coach Barnabas. This is the 35th episode. My name's Corey. I appreciate you joining me today. Trying to get in the habit of doing the whole podcast ask thing. So I hope you like this episode. I hope you like what Coach Barnabas stands for, this channel. If so, please do me a favor and like the episode, subscribe to the channel, click the little bell thing to get notifications. I'd appreciate it. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. And I'm not, this isn't about money because I'm getting paid nothing. But it does help the channel. It does help it appear in searches. And, the whole point here is encouraging one another, and it encourages me to keep doing what I'm doing, to get feedback, to get your responses, your participation in this, whether you're leaving comments or liking. Sharing is also nice if you want to share this with friends or people you know who might benefit or be encouraged by some of the topics we discuss here on the channel. If you have ideas for other things you'd like to see discussed here on Coach Barnabas, I'd love your feedback on that as well. So with that aside, those little pleasantries and obligations or whatever, let's go ahead and move on. Not long ago, maybe a couple months ago, I was introduced to something I didn't know existed. I think it was in social media, and I saw this 2-word phrase that stopped me in my tracks. You've heard of people talking about toxic masculinity and how awful it is. And it's like, okay, really? And then I saw this, and I didn't know it was a thing. I thought somebody just made this up, and then I looked it up. I did a search on it, and sure enough, psychological medical professionals have discussed this very thing, and psychologists and whatnot. And that 2-word phrase is toxic positivity. And it blew my mind that this is actually something people are criticizing in terms of being positive. And so, it stuck in my mind, and it's kind of been there for a long time. Since I read that, I just still struggled with it and wrestled with it. It's like, does it really affect people? Does it really affect people negatively? And a lot of some of the pushback I saw supporting this whole toxic positivity thing was that people don't like it if you're positive about everything. They feel like you're faking it, like you are not accepting natural emotion when you're sad, or that you're expected to be happy and positive all the time, despite some negative things that are going on in your life. So I kind of want to take this opportunity to address that. And that is what I really want to discuss in underlining position, biblically speaking, is the difference between happiness and joy, okay, or any emotion. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. So emotion that's who we are. We're emotional people. Okay. I tend to, I got this from my mom. She was a very emotional person, and I bring it up frequently when the topic comes up, that my mom was the type of person who would cry at Hallmark commercials. And that is no joke. That's not an exaggeration. Back in the day, Hallmark commercials would come on, they tug at the heartstrings, and you look over at her and she's dabbing tears. I mean, they got to her every time. So we'd laugh at her, of course, because, she was surrounded by 2 men, my dad and me. So that's what we do. But in fairness, you put a commercial on TV now with, Sarah McLachlan singing in the background, and, there's all these puppies and animals who are shaking, shivering, obviously malnourished and in distress. And I'm a blubbering mess. Okay. So we all have our triggers. But I definitely lean towards my mom. I'm an emotional person, and I have been seen publicly in tears at times when I'm moved. I saw Marley and Me. Did you see that movie? I talked myself through that movie the whole time, even before seeing it. Okay, the dog is an actor dog. The dog is fine. The dog is probably going to die in this movie. But you know that, and the dog is probably going around doing all the talk shows, and he's fine, right? Movie comes on, dog dies. I am ugly crying, straight up ugly crying. Okay. So, there are things, there are other movies that no matter how many times I see them, and sometimes it's out of joy, that I find myself weeping. The Color Purple. If you've seen that movie, when Shug Avery comes busting through the back doors of her daddy's church when he's on the pulpit, and she's, if you know the movie, if you know the story, she's, been living her life like a prodigal for some time, and she finally returns to her faith, returns to her father, returns to the way she was raised to be, and I cry. Mr. Holland's Opus, that's another one. If you've ever seen that movie, when he, at the end of, I don't want to give spoilers, but these movies have been around for decades, so I don't feel too bad if you haven't seen it yet, that I'm giving away something really crucial to the plot. But if you haven't seen these movies, maybe The Color Purple, that there's some content that may be disturbing. Mr. Holland's Opens is just a wonderful movie, in my opinion. But at the end of the movie, there's a culmination, and I won't go into spoilers, but there's a whole culmination of things that happen at the end of the movie that the whole movie leads up to, and I blubber. Okay, I lose it, and that's so I attribute that to my mom in that part of my DNA. So that's okay. Emotions are who we are, okay, and we're wired that way. And God's okay with that. He designed us to be this way. The key is, do we let our emotions rule us? Do we just say, well, I haven't had my morning coffee yet, so, and then unleash all kinds of rudeness to somebody and blame it on the fact that I'm not properly caffeinated. That's letting external things excuse or justify our poor behavior, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so we need to be aware of ourselves enough to realize that I'm letting my emotions control my behavior in a negative way that's impacting other people. Now, being sad, if you go through a tragic thing, a difficult thing, in life, lose a job, lose a loved one, just stressed out about things, that can happen, and people will rally to you and try to support you if you let them. But if you're the type of person that's like, get away from me, and you blow up at them, that's not really the appropriate way to go. Now, if you want to be alone, you need your space. That's one thing. But if you're lashing out at people and being ugly toward them, that's where you're letting your emotions affect you in a negative way, where it really negatively affects your behavior. And I've said this throughout my life, is that stressful and difficult times don't change who we are. It kind of reveals who we are, in all honesty. So if you're one who's prone to letting your emotions control your behavior, and bring out the worst in you, then there's some work that needs to be done there, because it shouldn't be that way. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Go back to this whole toxic positivity thing. If you're familiar with the Bible, or even if you're not, I'm going to introduce you to something that's called the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, I've discussed this recently, but in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, it lists what are known as the fruit of the Spirit. And I'm going to read them off to you because I tend to forget things in lists. So I'm going to read them so I don't leave anything out by accident. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Okay, let me list those qualities again. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are the qualities that are known as the fruit of the Spirit. Now, if we look through those, you'll see in there happiness isn't there. Okay. The fruit of the Spirit is happiness? No. Happiness, sadness, anger, these things are emotions that are triggered by external circumstances, okay? You slam your finger in the door, okay? an external circumstance is going to trigger your emotional response. Okay. The World Series just ended the other night. For those who are fans of the losing team, that external consequence, or that the external circumstance, I should say, triggered an emotional response of some kind. If you're a fan of the winning team, you're ecstatic. That external circumstance made you happy. Okay. But joy, one of the fruit of the Spirit, is no matter what external circumstance is going on, there's a theme of joy that goes through things. It keeps life in perspective. Okay. And so when I think of when I think of the list of qualities that make up the fruit of the Spirit, I also think that each one is an aggregate combination of the other qualities. So for instance, love, okay, the purity and beauty of love is a combination of the other qualities: peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Okay, joy. Okay, in order to have joy in its truest and purest form, you're going to see elements of love, of peace and patience and kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Peace. Having love and joy and patience and kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I can go down this list, and if you just take each quality and then read through that list again, you're going to realize that each quality is a composite of all the other qualities, okay, in its truest and purest form. So if you think about that, if you really dwell on that and think like, okay, despite my circumstances, I have love. Okay. And maybe you're there saying, but I'm alone. I want to be in a relationship, but I haven't found the right thing. I'm a guy who was 51 years old on my wedding day. Okay. And the only wedding I've ever had, and I ever will have. I was 51 years old. Okay. So I went, all my life, obviously my entire adult life, unmarried, single, surrounded by people who were married, having families, and living my dream. I thought that I dwelt on that constantly, is that these people are living my dream. Now, that didn't mean I rooted against them or wished harm on them because I was bitter or jealous or anything like that. Just I wanted that, but it hadn't come to me yet. But the thing is, it's like joy is, despite the external circumstances, I had God's love. I had peace in my heart, patience, patience. To be 51 years old, when you say your vows, in my particular case, it took tremendous patience, and there were times I wasn't terribly patient. Kindness, wow. Just being kind to people, regardless of your external circumstances. Just be good. Goodness, okay? Same kind of thing. Faithfulness, remaining faithful. Now, in a marriage, there are going to be times when you're not having those ooey gooey feelings, right? You know what I'm talking about. But you're still you need to be faithful in that relationship, no matter how you feel on the outside, or no matter whether you agree with what they've done or how they've done it or whatever. That's not an excuse to not be faithful. All right. Gentleness, always be gentle. Self-control, that's a big one, because a lot of times, talked about it, right up front, is we let our emotions control us and dictate our behavior. We need to be more aware and have self-control. And so all these things are key in maintaining our emotional balance. Okay. Ecclesiastes talks about there is a time to mourn. There's a time for joy and happiness and celebration. There's a time for all this stuff. It's appropriate. Okay. To be sad when somebody passes away. If they know Jesus, then you mourn the fact that you're not going to see them anymore. You're going to miss them. You're going to miss their presence in your life. You're going to reflect on the happy times and maybe some of the sad times, whatever. There's the range of emotions, but there's a joy that we don't mourn like those who have no hope in eternity. All right. That means that we can think back with joy and know that they're in the presence of Jesus and celebrate that. Even through our own tears, we can find joy even in those moments. So joy it's a choice. It really is simply a choice. And again, it doesn't mean to neglect, or be inappropriately woohoo, at a funeral, or as you're being, as you're carrying a cardboard box with all your stuff from your desk because you've been laid off of that job that you're bouncing out of, like, this is awesome. I can't wait for what lies ahead in terms of the challenges, and I'm going to be able to pay my bills, and what am I about my insurance? The holidays are coming. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, we're all like Tigger, blink, 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 and all excited about what a great opportunity this is to go through this challenge. That's not natural. And I'm not suggesting that it become natural, but when you think about joy in those circumstances, and say, you know what, God has promised to be with me throughout all of this. He hasn't abandoned me. He's not punishing me. But he's with me. And so he has something better in mind for me. And while I'm nervous, or I'm confused, or I just hate the whole idea of having to search for another job, or whatever the case is, or if your car breaks down, right? That's how frustrating and stressful can that be. But it's to say, but thank God, I have somewhere I can take it to get fixed. Maybe it's very expensive, is to pray through it and say, God, give me wisdom, give me direction. How can I take care of this? It's beyond my means right now. Trust me when I say that God is your provider. And I have seen it over and over and over again, where out of nowhere, somebody will just come to you and say, you know what, God, during my prayer time, put you on my heart. I don't even know why, but here's $100. Here's $500. Here, I just want to help you contribute something. Or I saw that you were going through a hard time. I want to help you through this. Let me see what I can do. Or I'll fix it for you. Whatever the case may be. I've seen God do that. So who knows what God has in store to help you through that challenge in your life. So it's a matter of keeping perspective and saying, I'm very stressed out, God. I'm sad. I'm angry. And you can have righteous anger. Okay. There can be an appropriate time to be angry. Okay. And so understand what I'm saying there. But at the same time is to maintain all those characteristics that are found in the fruit of the Spirit, all of them, not some of them, not pick apart. Well, I can't really do patience today, Lord. I'll work on the other ones. With patience, you're going to have to just give me a little hall pass on that. It's not how it works. Okay. We need to practice all of those and maintain those. And if you can maintain those, even in the face of difficult circumstances, you're going to be better off. You're going to be a positive person. Okay. And if the world sees that as toxic, then that just shows you how far the world has drifted from who we're intended to be. And if somebody challenges you and confronts you and criticizes you for being supposedly toxically positive, is introduce them to the reason why you are positive. It doesn't mean you're not affected, that you're not, appropriately emotional when things are bad, but there's an underlying condition of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, and trust in Him. I trust God. Think of Job, all right? After losing everything, losing his children, losing his wealth, losing his businesses, all pretty much simultaneously, and his wife, of all people, just saying, husband, just curse God. Just get it over with, curse God, and just die already. Put an end to your suffering and misery. And, Job's response to everybody was, God can do with me what He will. Even if He decides to kill me, I will still place my trust in Him. I still trust Him. That says it all, right? Is no matter what my external circumstances are, and I'm sad I lost my children, I'm sad I lost my business, I'm sad over all these things, But I don't blame God. I'm not going to be unfaithful to him. Faithfulness is one of the fruit of the Spirit. God is still God, and he has something else in mind for me, and I trust him. And that's an important thing. And so think about this as kind of a parting reminder as I wind this down and wrap it up. Hebrews 12:2. Who for the joy that was set before him, Jesus endured the cross. So obviously, if you're familiar with what Jesus went through in the hours leading up to the cross, he went through incredible physical pain, torture, and suffering. Okay. But this verse says that his mind, his heart was set on the joy that it was that everything that had been prophesied for so long, his purpose for being a human for those 33 brief years was not for those 33 brief years, but for all eternity, and reconciling us, a broken, sinful people, okay, but to reconcile that relationship that we could be with him in eternity, okay, with his perspective on that. That's what this verse is saying. For the joy set before him, for his purpose, for just having that perspective, for all of that, he endured the cross. He became sin for us. He died on the cross. He also knew that that wasn't the end of the story. That was the beginning of a new story. And if you have read the Bible, if you decide and choose, especially with the new year coming, if you decide I'm going to go through the Bible in a year, I can't recommend that enough. But you will see that the entire Bible, okay, Old Testament, before Jesus was physically among us, all that led up to Jesus being physically among us and then being our Redeemer, our Messiah, our Savior. Okay, the whole Bible is about those 33 years, and then culminating with his time on the cross and what happened over the next 3 days of conquering hell, death, and the grave for each one of us, being resurrected and redeeming us to God, creating a bridge that brought us back together again where there once was separation. That's what it's all about. And in that moment, in Hebrews 12:2, that's where Jesus' focus was, not on his own suffering, not on his own pain, not in his own, although emotionally it had to be difficult, but the joy was set before him. His mind, his entire being was focused on what this meant for all of mankind forever. Okay. And so that's the mindset. And if people want to call that toxic positivity, so be it. What a great opportunity to correct people and say, that's not what this is. Let me introduce you to Galatians 5:22 and 23 and tell you that even when I'm going through difficult times, I have these characteristics that see me through it. I have Jesus. I have his presence in my life that sees me through these difficult times. And while I hurt and while I miss this person because I will never be able to speak to them again or hear their voice again or get their hugs and affection again, I won't hear their laughter anymore, whatever the case may be. While I miss all of that, I have the joy of knowing that they're with Jesus, and one day I will be too, and we will be in the presence of him together, worshiping him for all eternity. And that brings me love. It brings me joy. It brings me peace and patience, kindness. It fills me with kindness, goodness and faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. So be encouraged, folks, because whatever you're going through, whatever is awaiting you, is going to be challenging. But he is with you always, and if you just really meditate on these verses and the qualities in them and realize that they're linked, inextricably linked together, that in order to have each one of these characteristics of the fruit of the Spirit is you have to have all of them. They all fit together. You can't have one without the other. Okay. So that's my encouragement to you today, folks. So thank you for joining me today. I'd love it if you'd leave a comment. And if you just need prayer, I'd love it if you just put in there, hey, would you pray for me? You don't have to get specific if you don't want to, but if you just would like prayer, please indicate that. My wife and I would be happy to pray for you over whatever it is you're going through. You can leave your name or you can do it anonymously. It doesn't matter to me. But we just like to join you in praying for you. But I hope this encourages you. So remember, be encouraged, be an encourager. I look forward to talking to you again very soon. You take care.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.